Hello and welcome to Kedrick Farms. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Rocky Fields mod by ThundR Modding. ThundR just released a testing version of this mod as a public beta in the last few days, and essentially what it does here is as you're doing any kind of tillage, plowing, cultivating, subsoiling, you have a chance to spit up a rock. As you can see, it's a decent sized rock. However, we are going to be able to pick these up by hand and move them around as necessary. In addition to the rock spawning mechanics, this mod also comes with a small placeable, the rock pile, where you're going to be able to get rid of those rocks after they pop up in your field. So without further ado, let's hop into some gameplay and check out how this actually works. Spawning a rock is an infrequent activity, but as you can see, when a rock spawns, it makes a noise something like this, and then rolls out the back of your tillage tool. So once we've got a rock that's spawned behind our tillage equipment, typically I'd probably wait until I was done doing all of the tillage in a field and then come back out with something to pick up these rocks. But for the purposes of today's tutorial, let's go ahead and grab this rock that we've just spit out of our cultivator. The first method is you can just pick this rock up manually. You can see that I get a stone fill on our bucket here. You can see that the rock is still loose in our bucket. And if we bring up the F1 menu, you can see that we have an RF toggle container lock tied to the L key. And so if I press the L key, my rocks are now locked into the bucket and won't move around. They won't tip out, and so you're safe from losing those rocks. This is really handy given the way that farm sim physics tends to work. And so for those that want the realistic option of having them bounce around, you've got that. If you want them to be kind of latched down to your bucket, you've got that too. There's also an automatic pickup mode for picking up rocks. By default, if you push right shift L, you will turn on the pickup mode and we'll be able to come up to this rock and have it automatically load into the bucket there for us, which is very handy if you don't want to have to deal with the painful farm sim mechanics. Similarly, if you don't want to deal with the bucket, you're going to be able to use a trailer as well. You can see I've got the auto load feature turned on here. I drove right up next to this rock and was able to toss it into the trailer automatically. You could also pick these up by hand and toss them in as well if you so choose. And then once they're in the back of the trailer, similar to how it worked in the bucket, you can see they're bouncing around here a bit. I also have the ability to push L and lock them into the trailer, and those rocks will no longer bounce around, which is very handy. Lastly, that brings us to our placeable, which is the rock pile. Once placed down, we're going to be able to drive up to this with any rocks in our bucket or trailer and have them automatically disappear into the rock pile so that you don't have to deal with having all of these loose rocks around. From a performance perspective, this is going to be very handy, and it gives you this nice little rock pile look on the edge of the field, which every field I've ever farmed in, I've seen something similar. If we just jump into the store here, you can see the rock pile shows up under the miscellaneous section, and it doesn't cost you anything. It's a fairly small placeable, which works out pretty well, so you're going to be able to put that pretty much anywhere. And this dirt area that's around it is the trigger area where you're going to be able to automatically unload rocks. It's always a little bit hard to see with the wireframe up, but you can see the orange bounding square here around this rock pile is anywhere. Anytime a loose rock enters that area, it's going to dump into that pile for you. One last comment is around the configurability of this mod. You can see here that I tilled up a fairly large section of this field already, and this is a pretty big field, and using the default settings, I probably tilled up maybe 6 to 10 rocks in this area. However, that's the great thing about this mod is that you're going to be able to adjust all of those settings in the XML file for the mod, and map makers are going to be able to embed this functionality into their map and set the spawn rate of rocks and do some different configurations within the map, which is really, really cool. So a huge shout out to ThundR Modding for releasing this beta version out to the community, and for allowing me to make this video about it. As always, if you've enjoyed today's video, drop a like. If you're new to the channel, hit subscribe for daily farm sim content. That's all for today. Ketterk out.